Welcome to the Ask Faleskini podcast with a guest. I'm proud to present Joe Dillon, divorce mediator. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Hi, Peter. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
I'm so excited because you're not a divorce lawyer, but you're a divorce mediator. So
Yep.
it's not always about getting a divorce as a solution to your midlife crisis. Would you be so kind and tell us more about yourself and what you do?
Sure. I am, as you said, a mediator. So unlike an attorney who represents one party and tries to fight for their client, I'm a mediator and I work with both spouses in a couple and I try to advocate for both of them. So if they want to end their marriage, I help them come up with solutions that are fair for both of them. Sometimes we can also use the same techniques that we use to help people get a divorce to also help mediate their marriage. As we were just talking about before we jumped on here today, a lot of the times miscommunication is a major issue among couples. And so using those same skills, you can get people to understand their differences, learn to negotiate and operate within them. And so really for those who want to, move through the process, end their marriage, I will help them, do all the things they need to do, draft paperwork, resolve all the issues. But the whole big difference is that I work for both people no matter what. I'm looking for the best solution for them as a couple, as a family, their kids, as opposed to, say, lawyers who are really just trying to get the best outcome for their client. So I hope that makes sense.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'll just start with the first question.
Yeah,
Should should we get uh, divorced or should we try to save our marriage? Because our
yeah,
current society is all about who this is not the right partner for you. You deserve better. Move
right,
on. Find another one. It's like buying a new car. Okay, you
right,
don't like the silver car anymore. Just buy a black one. Uh,
right.
and I believe I'm more traditional or even conservative in that sense. I
Yeah,
believe marriage should be for life, and it's something we should work on. It's not just something we should purchase or
absolutely.
get and then
Yep,
just get out of it when the model changes or when
right.
trends change.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, so I
I
would
agree.
like to
Yeah.
know what are your experiences? Which marriages are um, good enough to save, and when is it just so beyond that we cannot repair our relationships anymore, and we really have to move on?
Yeah, that's a great question. And like you, I definitely believe in the same thing. It's odd that I'm a divorce mediator, and I always feel like, well, I'm not pro-divorce, right? I'm anti-conflict. And if people are going to choose to end their marriage, I'm not going to try and change their minds per se if they've gone through the process and the steps that they've taken. And I'll talk about those in a moment. But I do think that, as you said, the car is a great example, right? There's a saying, right? You've probably heard the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, right? It's like people think that things are going to be different. And a lot of times it's not the other person, it's you. And people, especially in midlife, right, where we were talking, you have to be open to taking a hard look at yourself and taking a hard look at the role you're playing in what may be going on in your marriage, right? And we all love to blame, right? We love to point the finger at the other person. You did this. It's like, well, what did I do in this situation, right? So, to give you an example, one of the questions we ask on our intake form, a couple of them, is one of them is, have you done everything you can to save the marriage? Now, that seems like an odd question from a divorce mediator, right? But we really do want to know, are you just in a fight and you called us up and, like you said, I want to end this marriage? Or have you gone to counseling? Have you gone to marriage couples therapy? Have you done some work? Have you had conversations? Have you given this some thought? Right? And many people have, right? So when we talk to people and we get an inkling from them, I'll ask them sometimes if I'm in an initial meeting with them, if I'm getting the sense that it might be something like the former, where there was just something that triggered them, say, hey, you guys, is there anything you can do to save this marriage, right? I mean, I'm always happy to lose a client, right? There's plenty of people who won't take the steps they need to fix their relationship. But if there is something, it's like, what? I'm always going to be here, right? I'll be here if and when you're ready, right? There's no pressure on my end, but we do ask them if they've done that. Now, there are situations where it can be difficult to come back from that. So, for example, we say domestic violence, right? There's physical abuse, if there's emotional abuse, even if there's what we call financial infidelity, right? Where someone is stealing money or draining the bank accounts and things like that, or infidelity of the physical or emotional kind. Those are situations that are pretty hard to come back from because trust, of course, is a main driver in a relationship. And if that's broken by someone, then it's pretty difficult to repair. But a lot of times, you say to people, like, listen, you think it's going to be better, but you're the same you, right? You're going to be the same person who shows up in that next relationship. And you really have to ask yourself and me to ask them to say, hey, have you done the work here? Have you taken the steps? If you have, sometimes we'll have people say, yes, we've gone through 5 marriage counselors and we've been unhappy for 10 years and X, Y, and Z's happened. It's like, well, okay, you've obviously tried to repair this and you don't seem to have the ability to do so, right? So yeah, so we don't like people who come to us as a snap judgment because they think it's just going to be better. Like yourself, I say like, hey, you at one point said, I love you, you love me, right? We're going to talk in front of our friends and family that this is our marriage, right? So is there any chance to get back to that? You always really do want people to think about that. And then if they do and they go through those steps and they go through that process, a lot of times it happens before they see us, then we just want to help them get through the process as peacefully as they can. So
Okay, thank you for that. I have a question. I would like your take on it because in my retreats, there often comes so the both spouses come to my retreat,
yeah,
and what I teach them, and the retreats are extremely emotionally exhausting because we are working through traumas and we are working through
right,
fears and grudges and stuff like that. So
right, yeah,
a lot of time during the retreats there that this they get a bit not hard but a bit re-traumatized and stuff like that. So I'm trying to explain to both uh, that we choose partner that will help us address our traumas, our fears, and our
hmm,
grudges.
yeah,
So they are here to help us solve it. And
right,
we can always solve them by being irritated enough to be pushed in a situation where we have to solve them because it's
right,
better not to address our problem.
right, right, yeah.
So, would you agree that um, people are not aware of this and they don't understand that their partner is their partner because they help them develop themselves. As Jung would call it, they would help to walk on the path of individualization. And what we see or what triggers us in our partner is basically the best things that think that can happen to us because it helps us resolve our own issues. And if we don't see it, as I have pictured right now, then we want a divorce. But if we see it as an opportunity to grow, then I believe you as a divorce mediator is the best choice. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so you're right. Like I believe that when you a partner that you attract, right? So when you attract a partner and you get married to someone, like you said, it's kind of like a mirror sometimes, right? Where you're looking at this person and they might be all the things your parent was, or they might be all the things that you wish you were that you aren't, and then that upsets you because you're not like that person. But I think the biggest thing, and what you were kind of talking about, what I see is that this person, this partner of yours, if you will, is so kind of so in tune with you and so connected with you that they know how to push your buttons and they know how to point out your shortcomings and they know where the traps are, right? And you don't like that because nobody wants to be told that they're not perfect or that they've got to work on themselves or there's something, and instead of choosing to look at it as something is wrong with me, you say to yourself, this is an opportunity for me to improve. And I'll use this as an example, right? So anyone who is a fan of professional sports, right? So any sport, pick a sport. I'll use football in the universal sense, right? We can say American or international, right? So to all of us, it means different things. But um, you don't just show up on a team and you say, Coach, I'm here, put me in. You practice, you watch film, you study your opponents, you read books, right? You go out, do drills. You're doing all these things to improve yourself as a player. Why wouldn't you do the same in your relationship, right? And so then you can look at your spouse almost as a way as your coach, right? Your spouse can kind of say, you do X, Y, and Z. No, I don't. It's like, well, they're the observer, right? They're looking at it, and if you can get past, and I think here's a really key point, if you can embrace the fact that your spouse has your best interests in mind and they are not passing judgment on you, but rather saying, I know you can be better. I want you to be better. I support you in being better. That's when you can unlock magic, right? Because, sometimes my wife will be like, what are you doing that for? I'm like, leave me alone. And then invariably, an hour later, it didn't go well, and I should have listened to her, right? Because she was standing outside I'm trying to unclog the toilet and I'm banging on the pipes or whatever I'm doing, right? And she's like, if you just got a snake and put it down the toilet, you could leave me alone. I know better, right? But sure enough, I got the snake, and in 5 seconds it was clear. So, so I think those are the kinds of things, right? When you see about that partner, right, that you were talking about, that this partner has those things that you're looking for, right? Sometimes you want to look to them as inspiration, but again, it's always a conflict, I think, in feeling like you have some shortcoming, whereas as opposed to that person could serve as inspiration. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, if I understand that correctly, we have to think about our partner as our spouse as our accountability partner,
Yeah.
not someone that is our adversary. And that,
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. Because this person has, like, by definition, right? You think about your friends, think about your family, right? Think about all the people, Peter, in your life. And you say to yourself, well, I could probably count on one hand the people that I could really, if there was a problem, I could give them a call and they would drop what they were doing. And in my world, I know the number one person on that list is my wife, right? I know that without a doubt. And I embrace that. So whenever something crops up, like my example about unclogging the toilet, it's hard to remember at that time that this is the person who has my best interest in mind, who would do anything for me, who wants me to get the best outcome, right? Because I'm in the middle of my own emotions. If you can remember that, that makes life a lot easier. And I think it makes people connect in a more deep and genuine way, which in turn fosters better relationships, right?
yeah, that's amazing. So, to my specialty, midlife crisis.
Yeah.
So, one of let's say stereotypes about midlife crisis is you have to get a sports car and you have to get a younger wife. So,
Hmm.
um, and these are stereotypes, and of course,
Yeah.
some like it, some think they're true, some are not, and stereotypes are usually, uh, let's say, close enough to the reality. But
Right. They
like,
exist for a reason. Yeah.
but I would like to talk about is, um, would you say that midlife crisis is often um, just so the divorce is just an excuse for the lack of commitment to acknowledge that we are working with societal induced goals, or we have been working with that, and now we want to do what we want to do, And because of the frustration, because our goals or the goals that we have achieved and the goals that we want now are so much different, we are so frustrated that we're just taking it out on our spouse.
Mhm.
Could that be um, a reason for so many divorces these days? Because we don't treat our spouse as an we treat them like an asset, or however we want to call it.
Right.
We don't treat them, as you said, as a trusted friend, as the number one person that will jump to help us and be there for us when we need something. Um, so are we spoiled? Is that I don't know if the spoiled is the right word for it, but are we just so ungrateful for our spouses that help us in our life so much that we just want a divorce when something is not good a lot of times inside of us?
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to bring up something you said, which I thought was brilliant, like goals. You said that as kind of a passing comment, but I think that to me is the main driver in midlife divorces. And here's why. When people get married, right? There's no rule book. I mean, there's a lot of books and a lot of things, you can read all these things, right? But nobody really knows you as a couple. And I don't think enough couples at the beginning of their relationship and then throughout their relationship talk about what goals they want as a couple, right? We all think about we get a job. I want a promotion. I want to have kids. I want a new car, right? Me. But as a couple, do you ever really sit down once a year and say, okay, do we want to continue living in this town or do we want to move to Italy? Do we want, right? Nobody does that. Not too many people that I know of. Now, Cheryl and I, my wife, we tend to do that a bit. We say, okay, where do we want to be in 2, 3, 5 years, right? And I think by doing that, that keeps you closer tethered together. So as you're going through life and you're achieving goals and you're adjusting, now you reach your, say, I'll call it mid 50s, right? Kind of midlife, so to speak, 50 or so, and you say, well, gee, have we achieved our goals? What are the goals that we've now set for ourselves moving forward? And you feel more of a kinship, right? More of a partnership. When each of us is pursuing individual goals, what happens? The relationship goes like this, right? You can kind of, my arms are going off the screen, I'm sure, because we're just moving further away from each other. Whereas if we have goals, shared goals, we might be doing it like this, right? We'll get a little further, but we always come back. A little further, always come back. And I think that's a key driver of it because, like you said, then you get to this place where if you're just on your own journey, you A, forget about the role your spouse played in your life in getting you there. And B, if you didn't achieve all your goals, and this happened to a very dear friend of mine, and I believe it's the reason for their divorce, is this individual, they were really career driven and they didn't attain the level of promotion that they had wanted. And I really think that they got so angry about it and they were so upset about it that that made them unhappy with themselves. And then they in turn took that out on everyone else. They drove their spouse away and their spouse finally just had enough and said, I don't need to take this from you anymore. And so that happens a lot when if we don't achieve our individual goals, we get frustrated and we do that. So I do think that bringing that full circle is that goals to me and staying in regular communication, whether it's about where do we want to live, where do we want to go on vacation, how much do we want to save, what does our budget look like, all those things that make you a couple, you need to continue to do. If you don't, then you wind up in an office like mine where it's like you're just perfect strangers, right? And a lot of our people, I'll tell you, they're perfectly lovely people and they're so nice to each other. They're really very respectful, but they just don't know each other anymore. They're perfect strangers and they I guess at that point just feel like, well, I don't really know you. We'll just get a divorce. I'll go find somebody else to get close to. And in some cases, it's like, well, why don't you just try to relearn who your spouse is? Right? Go on a retreat, go do the work, do the hard stuff because you never know. You might rediscover something about that person and who they've become that you didn't know, right? And then it's like, well, this is like a new relationship, so why not, right? So, but I do think what you said when you talk about midlife, I think it's a feeling of personal failure, whether that's individually or like you said, you're looking at your spouse and they're not who you thought you wanted them to be, instead of recognizing, hey, I love them for who they are, even though I don't really understand them half the time, but isn't that the absurdity of life, right? That we're all on this planet and one day we won't be. And so I don't know about you, but I'm just going to try to enjoy every single day I can, because, every day above ground is a good day, right? So that's kind of how I look at it. So
Yeah, thank you for all these amazing insights, but I will not let you go before you give us one more insight
yeah,
from the divorce mediator. So, when we see that we have, let's call it cracks in our marriage, that things are not going the way they used to be, or we wanted or imagined to be,
right.
where should we start and try to find the middle ground? What is the point where we need to find the middle ground, and where should we start building or rebuilding our relationships from? I would like you to share your experience from
Yeah.
a successful marriage that you helped save.
Yeah. So I'd say it starts with you, right? Here, because a lot of times now my background also is in negotiation, right? So I'm a professional negotiator. That's where a lot of my training lies. And when you think about, negotiations, if you've ever seen like a movie or a TV show with like the hostage negotiation, right? Where the people are locked up in the bank. The hostage negotiator on the phone isn't saying, I can't believe you people did this. You're holding those people against their will. They're not doing that. That's not going to help, right? They're trying to connect with them. They're saying, "Hey, yeah, this must be really hard on you. I can totally understand why this happened." They're just trying to make that connection. But in order to do that, you notice the difference in language. It's not pointing the finger that you did this, right? It's more about me. And so I think going and doing work on yourself, whether it's with a coach, with a therapist, however you choose to do this, to say, how can I more lovingly and effectively communicate? And a lot of that comes from saying I statements versus you statements, right? And so, to your question, for example, instead of you never do this, like your spouse, you never make dinner. Instead, maybe it's try, I know you're very busy. It would really mean a lot to me if we could make dinner together, or it would really mean a lot to me if maybe could once a week, perhaps, could you find time to make dinner for us? You see how you're shifting the language, right? And I think language is a powerful tool and it's a powerful weapon. And so when we talk about marriages, right, it's that breakthrough moment, and what you and I do professionally, right? That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that moment where the other spouse is quiet and there's a lot of yelling, and then then both parties are quiet, and the other one looks at the other one as like, I never knew you felt like that, right? And that's the moment you're like, aha, right? And that's really where it comes from, someone being able to express themselves and someone to being able to really genuinely hear. And I think to answer your question specifically, it really comes down with the very first thing is acknowledging that things are not okay, and that not you, I had a role in that happening. However, I am committed to trying to change that and fix that. And not putting any pressure on yourself. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, great. But I want you to know that I recognize my role in this relationship or in this argument or this issue, and I want to do something to address it. And then the couple can either try themselves, or, as I say, look, we're not born with these skills. That's fine. There's professionals. There's people who go to school for decades for this. Go get help, right? There's no shame in that. Learn how to communicate, learn those skills, really practice them, really embrace them. and you'd be surprised at how far you can come. And regardless, even if you do wind up getting a divorce, right? I tell people if you've got kids, guess what? You're going to be talking to each other pretty much every day anyway. So you might as well at least learn how to communicate effectively with each other, right? So that's what I think. I think it starts with yourself. It starts with communication. It starts with, as we say, probably you say in your world as well, acknowledgement and validation, right? I know there's an issue. You're right, there's an issue. I understand I have a problem with it. Or I have a role in this issue. And that is a great first step towards trying to rebuild those bridges.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for all these amazing insights. Before
Yeah.
we finish, please let our listeners and viewers know where they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, certainly. So the best place for us is probably our website. It's equitablemediation.com. So that's our company, Equitable Mediation. If you go there, if you're looking for either we call it divorce mediation or marriage mediation, right, to save your marriage, you can get all kinds of information on our website. We have a learning center with courses and videos and podcasts and articles. We really believe in education, right? We, like I said before, we're always happy to lose a client. So if you're in the market to try to save your marriage, we can help you with that. Or if you've tried and you're unable to do so, we can certainly help you amicably, peacefully separate, divorce. But that's a great place. So equitablemediation.com, and you can even book a free call with us. We're always happy to answer any questions. So we just want to support people however we can in whatever decision and whatever direction they choose to go. So,
Thank you again.
all right. Thank you, Peter. It's great talking with you.